What is black magic? So many people have been asking themselves this, and well, through time, a lot of opinions have been built around this topic, and of course, many people believe this, many people believe that. So ultimately, there are numerous opinions and ideas on what black magic is, but in the end, is there actually a truth about it and what it basically is? I mean, at least at a certain uh, minute level so that people can actually find a very simple definition of what black magic is. Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel, place where I discuss on different topics like spirituality and deeper introspection. Now this topic will be shortly linked on the idea of black magic, okay? And of course, well, I'm not going to dive into occultism and the such, but black magic as a definition, or how I would see it, is nothing else than manipulation. Okay, now of course many people would ask what kind of manipulation. Well, there is no such thing as types of manipulation. You call it manipulation, subversion, you call it any way you want. It's ultimately the same thing. When it comes to black magic and using it on others, okay, what this basically implies, it means a certain level of manipulation, okay. Subversion, for example, it is an act of black magic, okay. Now, not necessarily when it is made at a, mental level, right? When you lie someone, right? That's not necessarily black magic, although to a very, very minute level it kind of is. Now, black magic is something um, that could be formulated under this statement. Any process or sort of action or group of actions that one deploys in order to have one's energies turned against their own self, right? So, what are these? Well, when you teach people wrong truths, you're technically having them turn against their own selves, right? When you are teaching people or programming them to behave in a certain way as if that is the one and only truth, that is a way of black magic, right? When you are selectively lying certain people, right, and using different techniques, right, different means to lie, not just verbally lying, right? When you're using persuasion and all sorts of ideas, right, emotions against them, right, you're using energy against them. And therefore, you're creating a result through which they themselves will believe in false things. Once someone believes in false things, right, things that don't represent them, suffering is bound to happen. Not because I would want it or anyone would want it, but that's how karma goes. If you're straying away from the natural things, right, suffering is bound to happen because it reminds you that you're doing certain things that you shouldn't be doing, right? So the reason why so many people today are suffering is because they have been programmed to distance themselves from literally anything, right? Nowadays people believe that nature can kill them when, well, basically nature can heal literally any wound, right? And the sun is dangerous, it is dangerous to go outside, and people stay just indoors and they wonder why they suffer, right? So shame, guilt, anger, hatred, you name them, these are tools for manipulation at a lower and higher level. How can they be at a higher level? Well, look for example at mass media, right? Media as a word in occult English stems from the Greek goddess Medea, which is a goddess of illusion, right? The goddess of manipulation, because illusion is nothing else than a fake truth, right? And in order to have people believe in an illusion, right, you have to create that. And you use persuasion and all sorts of energies, right? Ritualistically or not, but you're technically using certain energies, right? You're creating certain pseudo realities, and you have other people believe that as if it is the only truth, right? Another example of subversion would, for example, be religions, right? Religions have you believe in one single entity, or usually, like monotheist religions, and you believe in that as if it is your own truth, right? Your only truth. Now, how is this manipulation? Well, it's not necessarily manipulation, it is a way of seeing life, but the propagandas, right? The agendas that the religion itself is made for, right, in order to serve, well, that's technically what the manipulation is, right? Because based on religion or on certain beliefs, right, society will have you act in a certain way, right? So they have a certain control over you through a certain level of manipulation, or through a certain level of programming, let's say, because programming is also manipulation, right? Even in, computer programming, that is still a manipulation. When you create an AI in the game, the AI is simply blank as a child. It doesn't know anything. It has got little to no awareness, right? It does have a survival, right? The child has a survival of their own, right? But ultimately, they have little to no other awareness, right? And also, they have no discernment, right? The AI in a video game, they don't have any discernment. They don't see you just as you see things on a screen. To the AI, you're nothing than a point, right? That is why always the AI shoots at the same exact point. If you don't change the accuracy of an AI, it will always have 100% accuracy, and it will never miss because, as I've been saying, you're only a point, okay? And that point is the collection of your coordinates, right? Your XYZ coordinates, okay? Those are stored in a place which in programming is called a collection, right? And that collection is constantly changed based on how you move. So the AI, in order to know where you are, it constantly needs to refresh your XYZ coordinates because that's basically how it guides itself to you. The AI doesn't see, okay? The AI doesn't see as you see. It only knows where it can go and where it cannot go. That is its only awareness, right? And everything else is programmed. So it only acts based on its own code, which it goes through probably even several times per second, right? Because the logics part is made on, well, depending on how complex it is, it's made on well, we can't call them impulses because impulse still means a level of awareness, but it does them on certain algorithms, right? So if the player is there, if the player is here, you have to go there. If the player has certain skills on cooldown, if the player doesn't have those skills on cooldown, or in certain MOBA type games, for example, League of Legends, right? The bot knows you're stronger than them, right? Because they have a rigorous AI, although they don't seem to. But they will keep a distance if you're, you know, uh, if your build is much stronger than them, right? They don't have any awareness of that, but they are programmed to check which items you have, how much, how big your stats are compared to their own. So that is how they will perform, right? When your stats are much lower than them, most likely they will commit, right? Because their code is being constantly read again and again and again, right? That's how the illusion of thought occurs, right? That's how you have an impression that the bots actually think, but it's not a thought process because thought requires a certain level of awareness, right? So programming indeed is a manipulation, right? Because you create a code that manipulates certain resources, right? And well, programming goes the same for people. You have people believe in certain things, and well, it's prevalent nowadays. You are born into a society, you believe you're a certain nationality, a certain skin color, you believe you have a certain history, but history only means his story, right? It doesn't mean anything related to you, right? It's not your story, it's always someone else's story, and whether you are interested in that or not, that is just a personal opinion. But again, everything serves as a distraction, right? Because it is a great fear nowadays that people would occasionally or entirely wake up to the extent of their own potential, right? So what is basically a distraction? Well, your mobile phones, your video games, the movies that you keep watching, right? Lockdown, all these facilitate distraction because when you're in lockdown and you can't do shit, you want to distract yourself because you don't like the world you live in instead of actually taking responsibility, right? Because manipulation only works on people who are ignorant, only works on people who are unconscious, right? Because when you are ignorant, you accept everything without discernment. It's technically like being dead because the dead also don't have any discernment. So the point about, manipulation, it just means that you're using other people's energies against their own. Now, people who have a great mastery over energies, okay, especially, someone who has complete mastery over their own energies, can easily, for example, pull someone else out of their own body, right? Well, not necessarily easily, but that can be done, right? That is also a sort of manipulation, right? For example, even rape is a sort of manipulation, because manipulation means using a certain, exerting a certain power over someone to crumble their psychological and mental defenses, right? So that you give them a sense of powerlessness, right? It's what the strong always do. The parents always abuse their children because, well, they themselves have been through this, and well, they also believe that it's the only way, and at the same time they also exist unconsciously because that's what their parents gave them through their DNA, right? So each and every new generation is slightly better than the other one, and the journey through consciousness, right, it takes a long time, right, to break out of the prison of uncomfort, of the comfortable zone, right? Because unconsciousness gives you a sense of freedom. It gives you a sense of, you know, of a comfort zone. But the comfort zone is technically your prison, right? There, where you have everything, is where you are the greatest slave, right? And this is also another sort of manipulation. Why do you think consumerism was made, right? People were meant to be loved and things were meant to be used, but nowadays people are kind of meant to be used and things are made to be loved, right? Why do you think consumerism exists? Why do you think codependency exists, right? These are all sorts of manipulation, right? Because people don't know how to take charge of their own energies, right? So other people are making use of their own energies, right? You have all sorts of, vampires, right? You have psychological vampires, you have psychic vampires, you have energy vampires, right? The news is one of the greatest energy vampires, right? And, well, it is a way of subversion, right? They are drawing your attention. Technically, where your attention goes, energy flows, right? So they are constantly feeding upon your energy. When they are feeding upon your energy, there is an exchange. This is what I call the law of the 100%, right? You can always and only be 100%. So when you give of your own energy, something is given back, right? So you're giving your probably much better energy, and you're taking fear and hatred, anxiety from the news, right? Because people who propagate lies, they can't propagate happiness, right? Unless, well, you want to share their psychiatry, right? So anger, okay, anger is another way of manipulation. Whoever angers you controls you, right? Because your teacher angers you, you want to ignore them, but they're always in your head, right? Your spouse angers you, you want to ignore them, and when you ignore them, they're always in your head, right? That's how ignorance works. It means accepting everything without simply using your discernment, right? So why do your parents or certain people adore to be annoying to others? Is because they feel that when they anger other people, those people constantly think about them, so technically they are feeding them their energy. Very few people are consciously aware of this. Most are simply unconscious, but they can feel the results, okay? They feel adored, they feel how other people's energy is simply flowing to them, so they simply adore doing this again and again, right? Again, this goes for fear, right? When you fear someone because they're apparently intimidating, you're constantly thinking about them, right? When you fear a certain situation, you're paying so much emotion to it that you're kind of helping it turn somewhat more and more real. It's not bound to happen because the flow of distraction, as I call it, doesn't work just like that, right? So many people can simply sit and imagine everything that they would want in their life and work hard for that, but I assure you, not everyone will get it, okay? There are numerous other laws, and so much propagation towards this goes through courses and guided meditations and all sorts of stuff, but it just isn't that simple, right? Nothing is necessarily simple in this world, but the point is, just because you are straying from your own self, that's the only way black magic can have an effect on you, right? Black magic is not about, ritualistic killing that you see in movies, or, what certain people call satanic rituals, right? Satanism, again, is a black magic in a way, because Satanism has been changed from something that once originally was into something that is way distinct and foul in a way. Because back in the times, okay, there was a belief called Satanism, okay. Now what Satanism supported was kind of what present days you know, new age physics, okay, kind of state, right? These physics that state that we are gods and goddesses, right? Quantum physics, right? I think that's how it's called. Quantum physics stated some of the things that the old Satanism would say, right? Old Satanism worshipped a god called Satan, right? And Satan was the god of the flesh, right? He was the god of the physical realm. And his quote was, rule over this world, right? Just like in Bible it is said to belong to God, but he kind of said something like that instead. He said, rule over this place, okay? And live as richly as you want or as poorly as you want, okay? Embrace materialism and whatever you want, but do not become the slave of it, right? So it is quite a, one can say it is quite a wise quote, right? Because live as lavish as you want, right? But do not become the slave of the matter, for you will become my slave, right? And of course, it's been denaturated in so many ways, and Hollywood is doing a great job probably of, you know, turning this into something even worse. And now people are playing with all sorts of ideas without knowing what they're entangling themselves in. And well, when you play with meaning, right, you forget one thing. Meaning is also a kind of black magic. When you put meaning on something, you are only limiting yourself to view that as a very, you know, simple aspect instead of the vastness that it can be, right? Because when people say a tree, they only think of the tree just like you think of an object in programming, right? A piece of data that has some properties, right? And many people will start saying, well, it is that tree, so it has, you know, leaves of that color, right? It has, you know, thicker or simpler branches, right? They are, you know, twisted or usually straight. It grows usually to this height. It is usually this old, right? So it's just like parameters, okay, or, you know, properties of an object in programming. But what people are missing is the life within that tree, right? So many people are distracting themselves from themselves, right? And they are missing the life within them. That is why they are feeling that they are incomplete, right? And they still keep believing that, well, distractions are the only way, because these distractions give them a sense of liberty. They give them a sense of you know, feeling whole and complete. And well, as I've been saying, the mind will always provide comfort to only those who feed it the most, right? The more you feed your mind, the more means you give it to simply screw you over, right? So yes, that's one of the points, right? That's how you use black magic against yourself, right? You're not doing the things that support you. You're just supporting the things that are detrimental to you. So all this being said, hopefully you liked this video. It was just a little dive into this matter. All this being said, you are appreciated, take care of yourselves, become more introspective, and you'll see that whatever truth you are seeking is there within you. All this being said, you are loved and appreciated. Stay awesome. Ferengian Board signing out.